dear black people, you guys need to understand, you guys are hypercritical over us white people. Like, I know the past runs deep. I know. But like, you guys are extremely critical of us now, when we have not even been given one single chance, not one single chance, to fix the shit that our ancestors did.
I'm sorry, what? You haven't been given one single chance? Telling black people to get off our necks? Like what? Take away being held accountable for the things that we benefit from through absolutely no action on our part? Like we were just handed all of this privilege and we can't be in any way responsible or accountable for it? Content like this is gaslighting at best, harmful and violent in reality. What have you done, babe? Like, in your personal spaces, what have you done that you did not physically harm a black person?
My family fought to save their farm under this flag. Who was working that farm? My family was. Who was working the farm? They were poor. Do you know how much a slave cost back then?
There's actually a knowable answer to that question.
And gang, slavery was so bad, I don't even know how the fuck we still cool white people right now.
You know, I'm probably the least qualified person to talk about this shit, but most people might look at what he said and think, oh my god, why is he mad about something that happened 200 years ago, dude? Get over it. The truth is, it's not actually about 200 years ago. It's about what never healed. Most people might look at the video that he made and say, oh my god, slavery ended almost 2 centuries ago. Why are people still angry? Here's the truth, dog, okay? Trauma does not disappear just because the calendar moves. Trauma gets passed down in families the same way eye color and height does.
Ever notice how most white people are very silent about racism? They're quiet about calling it out when they see it. They refuse to talk about it in everyday life, but then proceed to say, yeah, I treat everybody the same. I'm not racist. You know, I love everybody. When they see injustices, when oppression cannot be ignored, they manage to do just that.
As the saying goes, you cannot teach an old dog new tricks. You see, white Americans are asking for time from black people. They are desperately asking for more time from black people to change, probably to change for better. Okay, everyone deserves a chance. But let's just be honest. In this case, I don't believe that these people can change. So many times black Americans have tried giving them chance to change, chance to prove themselves that they understand everything that black people are going through and everything that they put black people to go through. So you get to understand how all those things happened and how it all happened. But at the end of the day, they keep on repeating the same mistake. They keep on doing what their ancestors did. They are following through the script. So maybe the few white folks that are asking for time to change can change. But I honestly don't know. Looking at the patterns, looking at how white Americans, they associate or they talk about or how they feel about black people, tells you that we really still have a long way to go when it comes to change and when it comes to the perception of giving them time to change. Understand that these people are coming from a point of privilege. They're coming from a point of having everything they have. They're coming from a point of believing that they are the best. So you are trying to tell me you're going to put the same person in the same environment with the person that all of his life they were told that they had nothing good. Because of the cognitive dissonance that white folks have, it will be so much difficult for them to change. I'm just trying to be honest. And hey, you don't have to agree with me in this, but this is just my take. I really don't believe that white people can change. Maybe a few who understands the consequences of racism, and smart white folks that knows that staying close to black people, it is for their own good, because majority of white people have been doing this. So I really don't know what you think about this, but I just want to let you watch the video and then I'll be back. I'll be giving my 2 cents in regards to this. And if you're tuning me for the first time, I'm your host and presenter, Agent Stories. I just want to say thank you to the channel and thank you to all those who are supporting me, subscribing, sending me super thanks. I'm really grateful for the support that you all are giving me. Until then, I want us to watch this video and then I'll be back. I'll be sharing my thoughts in regards to this. Let's watch the video. I'll be back.
And gang, slavery was so bad, I don't even know how the fuck we still cool white people right now.
I'm probably the least qualified person to talk about this shit, but most people might look at what he said and think, oh my god, why is he mad about something that happened 200 years ago, dude? Get over it. The truth is, it's not actually about 200 years ago. It's about what never healed. Most people might look at the video that he made and say, oh my god, slavery ended almost 2 centuries ago. Why are people still angry? Here's the truth, dog, okay? Trauma does not disappear just because the calendar moves. Trauma gets passed down in families the same way eye color and height does. A grandma teaches her son how to survive in a world that treated her like she was less than human. That son teaches his child. The fear, the resentment, the distrust, it becomes culture when society never truly fixed the root. This is the truth, okay? White families, broadly speaking, get to pass down land, wealth, property, business, safety. Black families, again, broadly speaking, pass down survival skills, trauma, how to avoid getting killed by the police talks, pain, distrust. That's not 200 years ago. That's yesterday for them. That's yesterday for them. You understand? Bro, to be honest, and I could be wrong about this, I feel like the anger is not really about white people. It's about the system. Most black people don't actually hate individual white people. What they resent is the system that benefited white people, disadvantaged black people, and never fully corrected the imbalance. Put it like this, right? It's like if someone robbed your family for 10 generations and then said, let's forget about it, it's in the past. Meanwhile, they're still living in the house that they stole. That's what it feels like. The other thing too, bro, is that America never apologized, healed, or repaired. The trauma wasn't just slavery. It was 100 years of legal segregation, banning black people from schools, jobs, neighborhoods, restaurants, public areas, banning interracial marriage, lynching, redlining, which for those of you that don't know, it pretty much means blocking wealth, mass incarceration, police brutality, and pretending it's a history issue instead of a current structure that manifested in different ways in modern times. White immigrants came to America and got loans, neighborhoods, business assistance. You know what black Americans got? Good luck.
Not excuse being so flippant with the reality that black people find themselves in today because of white people, your forefathers, my forefathers. I also heard a lot of centering of yourself, centering your whiteness and your kind heart, and asking why black people can't see that. What I didn't see was any action, any ideas, any thoughts, and certainly any evidence of the fact that you've done anything in those 30 years to try to change the trajectory of being black in our country. You were asking black people to give you examples of where you can be an ally and a supporter. Why is that their problem? You need to be going out and finding those opportunities to use your spaces and your privilege to change the course of blackness in our country. I would love to hear from you what you say in a braai amongst white people like yourself, where it inevitably goes to black economic empowerment and how sad everybody is that their husbands were passed up for an opportunity. I want to hear what you say then, because that is an example of the type of place where you need to speak up. Not standing here creating content that centers you. If you are so open-minded and so ready to mend bridges and tell black people that they should stop being hurt by the history that got them to this point today, and that they should stop aiming any hurt at white people, then what are you doing to drive that? How are you advocating for equality? How are you speaking about equity? What institutions you're a part of, what organizations you support, how you show up in the world, and then we can have this conversation. But this is unsubstantiated and surface level and incredibly unkind.
History is teaching white Americans how white slave owners raped, beat, humiliated, mutilated, murdered, and cannibalized their slaves. Accurate history is teaching that George Washington's false teeth were made out of his slaves' teeth. Accurate history is teaching that Abraham Lincoln may have said some words and signed some shit, but he did not physically do anything to free the slaves. The white abolitionists also often get almost total credit for freeing the slaves. I bet you've never even asked yourself what the slaves were doing to free themselves, and the answer to that is most of the fucking work, including giving the ultimatum of war. But then we get a bunch of white people mad that their kids might feel guilty if we teach real history. It's not about your white child's feelings. Teaching accurate history isn't about white people's feelings, but that does sound like something that someone who's only ever been taught a white glorifying version of history would counter with. Ask why we ever felt like we needed to curate a false version of what white people did and did not do to black people to begin with. And then ask yourself why white-ass politicians are verbally attacking real history by calling it slurs, which is, by default, also the act of calling black people slurs.
I'm not gonna lie to you, it's hard to be surprised by how absurdly evil the US operates if you have like a real functioning knowledge of chattel slavery. And this is not a dig, like people are actively barred from better education and the totality of the horrors of chattel slavery because it allows them to like obfuscate how uniquely evil it was. This is one of the reasons why white separatists and Christian nationalists and conservatives love to bring up like, oh, there was already a slave trade, Africans were selling Africans, Arabs were selling Africans. Like, yes, there was an Arabic slave trade, there was an African slave trade, but they were not the same as the US's. They know that, which is why they're nostalgic for the time. A lot of people don't realize one of the reasons why race relations in the US isn't muddied the way that it is in Europe or in other colonies that they had is because we had no pathway to personhood. That was a unique quality of American slavery. Every other place had a path to citizenship or personhood. You can buy your way into freedom. You could breed your way into freedom. That's how we get like the mulatto. This was big in Spanish and Portuguese colonies. If you bred out enough African, you would be freed. If you married out, like in Brazil or in Portuguese colonies, you would be freed. No such thing existed here. It was the one drop rule. That matters. It's one of the reasons why historically, I don't see why we use like BIPOC language because it's not about everybody else. And this isn't like in a good way, but it's the reality. Like the US is very much still reconciling with a black-white racial conflict. The rest of y'all are collateral. That sounds mean, but it's the truth. And history shows us that because even amongst its other enslaving white counterparts, the US was still amongst their contemporaries regarded as a uniquely evil form of enslaver with very stringent race relations. And all of it is contemporary. We are living in derivatives and replications of the plantation every day. And I'm thinking about it a lot because seeing these people be like extrajudiciously deported, whether or not they're citizens, whether or not they're here legally, borders aren't real. I don't care about them, but you get what I mean. This like no tolerance policy of the other is like really fascinating if you know like how much work it took to maintain the power of whiteness. The fact that post enslavement after the Reconstruction period, they had to restructure what whiteness was because of their numbers. And it's the racial anxieties accompanied by white folks' fear of black retaliation that led to them subsuming other groups that were not considered white into their own as a self-preservation tactic. This is where we see them giving the Irish and the Italians and the Jewish people a chance to like audition into whiteness, to bulk their numbers. And this is something they've been thinking about for a long time. It's why the Great Replacement theory is literally the bedrock of conservatism. This is just a contemporary version of white enslavers being absurdly cruel and then writing in their diaries about how they fear about being killed by their like slaves at night. This is just that with Google. But one of the other reasons why they make sure that people don't know the full scope of chattel slavery in the American context is to see like where it was failed otherwise when people would try to replicate it elsewhere. After the Civil War, tens of thousands of white enslavers took their plantations, uprooted them, and placed them in Brazil because, not so fun fact, I guess, Brazil was the last in the West to abolish slavery. They didn't get rid of it until 1888. They were also the colony with the most enslaved Africans total.
This is why the largest black population outside of the continent of Africa is Brazil. When these white enslavers got there, again, fleeing, having to get rid of their plantations, they wrote endlessly about how homesick they were, not just because of things like the climate and the fact that they weren't allowed to fully replicate the same plantations. Like, for instance, a lot of them wanted to grow cotton. You can't do that in a subtropical climate like Brazil. But explicitly, their biggest gripe with Brazil was with its race relations, because they had a freed black population. Because Brazil, a Portuguese colony, was one where you could breed out blackness, you could buy out of enslavement. There was a path to citizenship. They were considered people there, and that was something white enslavers physically couldn't conceive of. It's quite literally what led to tens of thousands of them coming back to the States. A few successfully settled there. That's why you get the town of Americana in Brazil. That's how you get this like ethnic group considered the Confederados, which are the descendants of these previously enslavers who then started to mix with the local, Brazilian population over time. And one of the reasons why the Confederados and Americana settlement is at the top of my mind is that when these tens of thousands of homesick, like middle class, they weren't like the most wealthy, but semi-wealthy white enslavers were done with their like Brazilian project, they petitioned the U.S. to help subsidize their travel back because they spent all their money trying to replicate their plantations in Brazil. And the U.S. did! Like, the U.S. literally helped pay to repatriate these enslavers back to the States, specifically back to the South. And it's this knowledge that blows my mind all the time, where it's like, my tax dollars, your tax dollars are being used to send people wherever the fuck this administration wants them to go. And this is the same country that was like paying out reparations to white enslavers for loss of product and income. The same country that, when after a civil war had tens of thousands of defectors leave to maintain slavery, they helped pay to bring back. That's this country's legacy. That's why I always say the U.S. is profoundly unique in its evil. Our race relations are very clear. This is not like a brown, black, like melting pot struggle. This is all about reminding black people our ultimate place, which is as being a proprietary force for white America. Everyone else is essentially just collateral. You have to get everyone else out because they are amongst us. But also, if there are less of the brown, less groups in between us, it'll be much easier to legislate and navigate a white-black racial caste system, which is why they are deeply nostalgic for the American past, because uniquely speaking, within the context of transatlantic slavery, we were the ones with the harshest, most violent race politic. And that's what they are seeking again. Race relations is the very reason why our left politics is considered the right in Europe. This country is soulless for a reason. And this isn't to say that Europe didn't have its problems. Again, they are the reason we had these colonies. They're a reason that many people speak Spanish, that a quarter of the world is francophone, why folks who should have never heard about a pope have Catholic names. But ultimately, this is just the pot of racial violence and terror boiling over finally post-Civil War, because it's not enough that they didn't like punish the South. They were like actively rewarding them, giving them positions of power and telling them to just replicate what they needed quietly. And that's what happened. And we're living in the after of that. And I think if more people had a better education about the totality of chattel slavery in the American context, they would be less occupied with like preserving the perceived soul of the country and more interested in, after the shit burns down, what can we build that's better? I've been begging y'all to get woke on transatlantic slavery for so long, and Reconstruction specifically for so long, for this purpose. Because the black folks who were allowed to have this education, like, we knew time was a ticking, and the time is now.
Ever notice how most white people are very silent about racism? They're quiet about calling it out when they see it. They refuse to talk about it in everyday life, but then proceed to say, yeah, I treat everybody the same. I'm not racist. I love everybody. When they see injustices, when oppression cannot be ignored, they manage to do just that. Pretend like it's not happening for their comfort. When you don't speak up on something, when you pretend it's not as big of an issue as it actually is, when you say, I'm a good person, I treat everybody the same. So what these other white people are doing to harm and oppress other people has nothing to do with me, so I can stay quiet and just allow it to happen. That is prioritizing your comfort over justice. That is what's keeping this whole system that white people designed alive. This whole racial hierarchy. And you are scared of rejection from other white people, if you're scared to talk about these things, if you're scared to be vocal, if you're scared for people to cut off contact with you or to remove you from a friend on social media, if you're scared to be scapegoated yourself, you are fully responsible for keeping the system alive. The injustices that people of color experience are your fault, just like the rest of the majority of white people. You are not better than someone who is racist themselves because you allow it. You allow it. And if every single one of us that claims to not be racist went and took a stand, became vocal, didn't hide to protect themselves. There was uproars when a rich white person was just let go with a warning when they committed a hate crime, and we made big deals about these things because we genuinely cared. It wouldn't happen anymore. We held racist people accountable. If none of us tolerated it, no, the ones that said they're not racist, if we didn't tolerate other racists, I think we can end this whole racial hierarchy thing going on. We held cops and judges accountable. If we punished hate crimes to the fullest extent, if we had a zero tolerance policy for racism, if every racist person was blasted online by other white people, we took a stand and said we are no longer enabling other white people just because we don't want to be rejected by them. I think that this country could look a lot different. Nobody wants to do anything. Nobody wants to do anything. We want to pretend like they're doing something. They want to pretend like they care. But everybody moves about with their ego in mind. Everything is me, me, me. What will happen to me if I do this? What will happen to me if I'm vocal? What will happen to me if I'm an outcast? Who cares? Who cares if you're scapegoated? Who cares if you're an outcast? Do what's right. I just can't stand how weak people are.
How bad was slavery, Daisy? How bad?
It couldn't be any worse there. I just keep trying to tell you. Can anything be any worse when a white man was having children by the Negro slave women and then putting them up for sale on the block? Putting it, my father, they wanted to sell my father for a breeder for $12,000 when he was 12 years old. And old Golden, John Golden, was the rich planter. He wouldn't sell him for that. This lady that was in this room this morning is from New Orleans, one of the women. Just this past 2 weeks, she found this picture of my father down in New Orleans, and she's bringing it to me now. I'm going to have a copy of my father.
Great. What regiment did he fight in, Daisy?
1st New Jersey Cavalry. When he ran away, my father was on the plantation working for his master, and he with 27 other boys ran away, swam across the Rappahannock River, and joined the 1st New Jersey Cavalry in 6th from the war.
Was he a good fighter, your father? Did he fight hard for the Union?
Oh, yes, dear. He was a brave boy. Actually, he had nothing else to do. He was a brave boy. He had to be brave to come up here in this country and make a living and get ahead and get on his feet and raise us family.
My family fought to save their farm under this flag. Who was working that farm?
My
family was. Who was working the farm? They were poor. Do you know how much a slave cost back then?
There's actually a knowable answer to that question. By 1860, at the time of the Civil War, enslaved people's value was somewhere between $200 on the low end all the way up to $2,000. So we're talking about, in today's dollars, maybe somewhere between $2,400 and, like $50,000. There are even some estimates that say that some enslaved people were valued at somewhere around $180,000 in today's dollars. So you can think of it basically like owning a car. And about 1.6% of Southern families owned more than 200 slaves, like having like a whole car dealership. But about 20 to 25% of Southerners at the time of the Civil War owned at least one enslaved person. It's like basically living in a society where wealthy people all have cars. Well, what do all the people who don't have cars want? A car. And even if a family worked on a small farm and didn't have enslaved people, what do you think their goal was? Their goal was to earn enough money to be able to buy people, to buy humans to do the work. It's not like families didn't aspire to have enslaved people. Why do you think that Southern whites were willing to go to war, to literally go to war against the United States for slavery? Because remember, every single state that seceded, all 11 of them said explicitly, we're doing this to preserve slavery. Well, why would somebody who's on a small farm want to fight to preserve slavery? Because their aspiration was to become a major planter, which means a major slave owner. That's what they all wanted to do. That's what they all aspired to do. And they also wanted to defend the system whereby they couldn't be enslaved. Only Africans could, only black people. And so that system of hierarchy that allowed any white person, no matter how rich or poor, to be superior to any black person, and for that black person to be captured and treated as property, and their children and their children's children owned by a white person. This is a system that benefited every single white person in the South. And by the way, every white person in the North too. Because even if you weren't a slave owner, you benefited from the economy that cotton production, that rice production, that all of these industries generated. You could benefit by being an insurance owner. Slaves were insured like cars. Enslaved people also produced goods that were sold. So if you were somebody who was in the shipping business or, the cotton milling business, all of them benefited from slavery. So whether you were a small farmer or a big farmer, the slavery system benefited you. And you were willing to go to war to preserve it and to preserve white supremacy because that was the whole basis of your society. And by the way, a lot of people in the South went to war simply because they were told to and because the rich people around them made sure that the poor kids were doing the fighting, right? And so it doesn't matter whether your family was rich, poor, had one slave or 10 or none. It doesn't matter. Everyone in the South benefited from that economy and that system, and they went to war to preserve it and to preserve white supremacy forever. So that's the answer to your question. You also told on yourself just by saying that at all, because why are you curious about how much they cost? You missed that system, right? You think things were better then? One last note. That flag is not even the flag that your forefathers fought under for their farm. That was not the flag of the Confederacy. That's a flag that they created afterwards. It's literally just a symbol of racism and white supremacy. And you're flying it because MAGA. Peace out.
Hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to the channel. I just want to talk about something to prove to you or to tell you that these folks had a chance of changing, but they didn't change. They had the opportunity of changing. They had the opportunity of making the place better for everyone. But what they decided to do, they decided to make it theirs. Remember giving a person a chance 400 years to change, but they cannot change. Generation come, generation go. Generation come, generation go. So what makes you think that these are a group of people that are going to change? Maybe I might be biased, but hey, I'm trying to be logical here. Don't crucify me. I'm just trying to be logical with you or with everything that is going on right now. So let me know. Let me know if given a chance, these people can change. Just let me know. I want to know. So I'm going to be going through what people said about this. And I'm going to be sharing it with you. They inherited a house with a leaky roof, a crumbling foundation, and a plumbing system that is eroded. They chose to ignore it for almost 200 years and are now telling the people condemning the house that they are being too hypocritical of them and that they need more time. It's crazy. I think she is trying to be satirical and is using a lot of deep meaning, like metaphorically, to describe the chance that white Americans have. Because indeed, they have had their time. They have had chances to prove themselves. So right now, they are asking for another chance. But do you think it's the same? Do you all think the same? Do you all feel the same? That you could give Black Americans the time, white Americans the time to change, to become a better person? I honestly don't know, but in my opinion, I highly doubt. In fact, if I could give a probability, I could give a probability of 70 to 30 that they are not going to be changing. In fact, 80-20. They are not going to be changing. So they want more time, but meanwhile, they want us to live in oppression while they charge us the same amount of taxes. Play keep us completely oppressed and blocked from building wealth, and they don't think that's unfair? Yes. To them, they think that Whatever they are doing is fair. But come think about it, it's not. There's a group of people that had a chance of changing, but they didn't. They took the chance for granted. They never used the chance. One thing that is very true, for 450 years, Black Americans have suffered. Now into 2026, they are still stressed, but they know how to handle it. That's why we stay joyful, because Black people know that something is coming. We can put all our hearts into it and our faith. That's why we stay joyful. Right? My eyes were twitching when I got to learn about drained pool politics. I got it out. Everything that stabilized this country and made it self-reliant. Now look at this pathetic state currently that America is in. 500 years is way more than enough time, even for an idiot like yourself. What you really mean is, please let me live my miserable life out before you bring judgment on us. I think not. You better get it together fast, because your time has run out. And it's true, their time has run out. That's what's really happening. They got all these distractions going on the world to try to cover up the truth, but it won't work under judgment. Period. It won't work under judgment. They got all the truth that they want. The time is up. The storm is coming. You and your friends better bat down the hatches, because when it hits, you're all gonna wonder how you ever thought you could live so large and live so little. For the rest of us, the first will be last, and the last shall be first. That's straight up. Now, somebody say that even after hundreds of years, white people still terrorize Black Americans simply because they won our freedom. They literally terrorize us, lynching Black people, burn down our cities, deleting us for no reason, putting drugs in our community, and mass incarcerated Black men, set up laws that could keep Black families separated. White people never stopped attacking Black Americans. They just found different ways of doing it. And the very fact they refuse to give us reparation for all the harm they have done to us and are still doing says that those people have not changed a link. They simply don't want to give us an opportunity to get their own level or surpass them. They read the history books. They know exactly what their ancestors did to us, but they keep trying to act like it was not a big deal and we should get over it. No, we should never get over it. Whites don't tell the Jews they should get over it. The Holocaust way, they do keep telling Black people that they should get over it, slavery or a Holocaust. So that's what's up. That's what happened. Right? So their time is up, and they know it damn well that their time is up. And that's what's up. That's what they gotta deal with. So brothers and sisters, please let me know what you all think about this video. As you know, I'm your host and presenter, Genetic Stories. But until then, let me see you in my next video. Peace, love, and harmony. Salute.